So hi, everybody. Welcome to the BRIA Leadership Series webinar, The Future of Leadership in Light of the Global Pandemic. Today, we're going to have a talent talk with LinkedIn, and our special guest is Claudia Plihal. So thank you very much, Claudia, for being with us here today. It's an honor, a pleasure to have you, and I'm so looking forward to the exciting conversation we're going to have today. So thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.
So for those who don't know Ana Claudia, so she's the head of talent solutions for LinkedIn Brazil. So Ana is graduated in computer technology from McKinsey, has specialization in business administration from McKinsey, management from INSPIR, marketing and innovation from MIT. She also has worked for large companies such as Microsoft, Cisco, Oracle, Schneider Electric, where she held leadership positions in sales, marketing and services, and others. So the search for impact on growth and the national economy. So she has managed product development projects and program implementations in Brazil, trying to bring technology closer to the Brazilian reality. She is very active in committees focused on promotion of women's participation in the corporate market and raising them to leadership levels. So that's my passion as well. I love it. She's married. Yeah. She's a mother of a couple of children, just like me, so we have that in common as well. And she seeks through her acting to inspire talents, to promote the transformation for positive impact, and generate legacy of value. It's amazing. Again, Ana Claudia Plihal, thank you very much for being with us today. It's a pleasure to have you.
I thank you for the opportunity, and I do believe that we can at least make this moment good for everybody and have this chance to share what we are seeing, how things are going in this new world that is being configured in front of us.
Right, so much change, so much disruption, and there's always a chance to see the positive side of it. So in the midst of all the chaos that sometimes hits us, we can talk about some positive aspects of it and the opportunities that it also brings along the way, right? So in order for everybody to participate, please feel free to ask questions via the chat. We will try to make sure everybody gets a chance to talk directly or to ask. I can ask the question you can ask a question through the chat and I'll communicate it with Ana. So the idea is to be very interactive. And I'll kick off starting with some questions that I had in the back of my mind that I am very excited to ask Ana to get started. But please feel free to ask in the chat as well. So Ana, so from your vantage point, what are the biggest challenges and opportunities for leadership in the moment we're living?
And Adriana, I think that the challenge it didn't change really. So we were already facing the pressure that the digital transformation was bringing to companies, and this is still the same challenge that we're facing. In this digital transformation, we can split it in two pieces. We have the customer, all process related to customers and how we digitalize it. And then you start seeing this move coming back and looking inside, looking for the employee, for the talents of this company. And it's clear that the customer side was very well developed and is steps ahead of what we have when you talk about the impact of this digital transformation in employees. And for sure that when this pandemic reached us and we had to move everybody to work from home, how not well prepared you were about it. Mm-hmm. Digital transformation is also important, again, by talent perspective, when it relates to what we call employer branding. So if I treat my customer in a digital way, in a way I have to reflect it in a way that I manage I treat my employees also, the talent also. And in this spectrum, we have companies that don't even have a mobile device to provide to their employees to work from home until concerns about data security and how to connect them. Passing through companies that could move, and this happened with LinkedIn. I am very glad to work in a company that is 100% digital. We decided in one day to the other to move everybody to work from home. And for us at this moment, what we are looking for was much more, okay, which are the infrastructure that we can provide to discuss employees to work from home. So we were not only a mobile device, all of us, we already have access to. So it was easy for us. We have all the concepts of closing a VPN so the data would be secure and we could handle the situation. But we start thinking about, do these guys, they have the right chair to be seated on 8 hours working on? Do they have the right table? So it was different worries or things that we had to manage to really create this environment. So, and we start facing all these discussions by customers' perspective also. So it was interesting that in this journey that hit us with the COVID, we saw the first moment where customers asked us, what did you do to move all your workforce home? So it was the first step. Quickly, we moved it to a second stage. Okay, now that we decided how we're going to manage the situation, some of our customers moved to creating turns of employees, part working from home, part working at the office, until setting up the way of doing business, which should be the new cadence of managing these people. And here it was interesting to see how the role of the manager pop up strongly, right? So depending on the approach, depending on the relationship of this manager with the team, the results were different. Then we moved it to, sorry, yeah?
No, I was going to say, just very interesting, because the role of the leader, right? And we're talking about the future of leadership, and in the moments of crisis, this is where we have the greatest opportunity for leaders to, like you said, pop up, right? And show why they're there.
And it was more clear for everybody to see that discussions and perceptions that were not really being treated became essential. So we're going to talk a little further about the competencies and approach, but what I said, how they were used to establish the relationship, the daily relationship, amplified benefits and things that were not really going okay, that at the end of the day had to be managed by the manager. So during the second moment of this journey that we faced, it was okay, let's discuss how I can establish this contact and keeping the sense of team up and running, right? So we have a lot of webinars and calls sharing how we were doing, but at the end of the day, it was, again, the leadership of the manager on how to establish it. Then we moved to the third phase, where all hiring was frozen, right? So what we heard on the market was the hiring freeze all over the world, right? Even inside LinkedIn, because at this moment we were, okay, we don't know what is really happening. We don't know to where it's going to lead us. Let's stop. So everything was put on pause, right? And the consequence of it was the question that came to the internal workforce. Okay, if they are not hiring, what's going to happen with my job, with my position? So in this third moment, we had, again, how precise the manager had to be to really communicate and to be present on saying, you know, you maybe not have all the answers, but the most important thing now is to keep going, keeping focus and working, because we really don't know. But at the end of the day, we saw and we start thinking and discussing a lot about the mental health and the impact of the moment, or the external information and what was happening in the work impacted this person, this mother, this father, or a son of an elder person, how to deal with it, how to protect them, on top of sharing the same space with different people in different moments that were not really designed or concepted to be our work environment, and keeping focusing on what having to be done and providing inputs or results that could sustain their good job, their good performance. So from the hiring freezing to how I'm gonna be measured, how my performance is gonna be measured, in between we have all this other inputs, other pressures coming from outside to the work environment. And again, discussions that usually to be let out of the office, suddenly they had to be managed in a very productive and a very personal way. And again, leaders were crucial in this moment, right?
So we already have some questions here from the group about this, how to manage people from the distance and home office and with all of these different pressures. And you touched beautifully on most of the aspects here, because I think you brought a very important point, that is, not business had to not only send people home and in the case of LinkedIn and other companies, provide the right chair, the connectivity, the equipment for them to be able to perform at home, but deal with all those issues that were kind of from life, but they were not so evident anymore. And when you put everybody confined in the same space, the families, a lot of the issues emerge, right? And we had a lot of people had companies mainly also dealing with issues that were already being dealt with, but were more evidenced, like violence, domestic violence, or like you mentioned, mental health. So, this already addresses the question that was asked here to begin with, but I love that, you shared the experience of LinkedIn, but you have this lens from internal and from external with your position as well, right, Anna?
Yeah, and it started as, okay, what are you doing, right? So in the beginning, all the calls and roundtables and the webinars that I joined was much more based on what is LinkedIn doing, right? And the fact is that each company is different. There is no solution that one size fits all at the end of the day. All companies has its specifics and has to be treated in a different way. The same with the in a team. Each person were facing a different situation. So my personal experience was, in the beginning, the employee with small children at home was facing a more challenging situation, because it was really hard for them to have a quiet and private space to work on, until the moment that you start opening discussions that, I know that you are at home and your 3-year-old boy, when you see you at home, he wants to play, so there is no problem of having this kind of situations. And we start seeing that customers were having the same challenge, right? So it brought a real movement to become empathic with the situation, because everybody was facing the same. And given this freedom of and concessions, that we know that each person has a different background, a different situation, a different challenges to deal with every day. So we start pointing directly this fact. So one example, to all the women that I have in my team, I start asking, which is the schedule of your house? What is happening there? How is the other supporting you or not? Is it an okay time to set up a meeting? Because I know that maybe you have to prepare the lunch or whatever, right? So there a lot of flexibilities and different conversations that used to be, as I said, out of office. And we brought this conversation to the office or to this relationship.
This is beautiful. It reminds me of a systemic concept of zooming in and zooming out. So in systems thinking, when you have this issue that is very challenging and unknown, with so many variables, very complex, you have to not only, deal with the details of certain specific things that emerge, but you have to zoom out to allow for you to see everything that's popping up, that's included. And you're beautifully saying how you included all these issues in managing the teams, right? But can you explain to us a little bit more, because how do you apply this concept then of zooming in and zooming out as head of talent for LinkedIn Brazil?
Okay, so I think that in my next slide, I share
the previous one, Isa.
Yeah, this one, yeah. So this is what I call zooming out, right? So important to say that Brazil, today we have 44 million members at LinkedIn. Is the fourth biggest LinkedIn community at LinkedIn. It means that we are really, really relevant on the LinkedIn world. And more than having all this amount of people, the behavior that the Brazilians have in the platform is also very important for us. So we have a higher engagement level of the Brazilians. It's really, really focused on professional development. And one very interesting thing is that how important the networking, how the LinkedIn is used to really create the networking. So with all of this said, these 44 million users are reflecting 400,000 companies that we have on the platform. And with it, we can really measure how skills are changing, in how the level of importance that each skill has, and give us the data enough to create trends and to take us to evaluate to where talent discussion is going, leadership is going, and more than this, what really makes sense for us as a country, is the subsidiary and what we produce and manage all the time. So this is my zooming out, right? When I look at it, and I do have a very strong and well-defined perspective of the labor market in the country. When I mentioned zooming in, and based on all of this data, that is the next step. Give me the possibility to go to companies and ask what is really, really important for you. What are you looking for? So one thing is the next slide, please, is when you ask it by company's perspective, the most important thing that they were already looking for, and is even reinforced during this time, it's all about interpersonal skills. When you go to the leadership or management level, it is even more important. I mean that if there was a perception that an expertise leader was losing space for a more broader leader, this is a real what is happening today. So companies, I used to hear the phrase that we usually hire people by their hard skill and we fire people because of their soft skills, right? So, and this cost is becoming higher and higher. So more than ever, companies are really evaluating, okay, maybe this person doesn't have all the knowledge that I'm looking for, but they have the values and their personal purpose match with the company's values and the company purpose. So it makes much more sense to invest on talent with this match instead of just hard skills.
This is really transformational here because it's almost unanimous. Like 91% of the responder are putting importance on the interpersonal skills. And that's basically where you can have change happen, because that's what you can control, right? What you do, how you react to things, how you adapt to new situations. So only you can control. It's beautiful.
Yeah, exactly, because it gives you the protagonism of this change is on the hands of the talent. Is your decision to develop it, to change it, to really move to a different direction. And the other thing that were already very important and keep being is the flexible work in all many different kinds. It may be working from home, it may mean flexible hours, it may mean whatever, right? But flexible works are already another thing that companies were looking for in a way to really innovate and have the best talents working for them. And then we have the other tools that are also very important. And one thing that is important to mention, Adriana, is that this is only Brazilian data, right? So it's really the reality that we are faced in Brazil. As I said, because we do have a strong amount of information that we can support all the research that we do. Anti-harassment policies more than ever. So it relates again when we see what we are, unfortunately, the growth that we are seeing about the violence at home and things like this. It's a kind of a reflect of creating a secure environment where the person or the minority, whatever, feels comfortable and can look for help. And specifically in the case of Brazil, salaries transparency is one trend that's starting being increasing a lot in discussions around. In a moment that I share, for example, if I post a job where I'm already saying the salary expected for this job, means that whatever, if I am a woman or a man or a black person or Muslim, what doesn't matter, this is the salary that I'm gonna pay for you, right? So it has indirect inflections that this transparency means that there is no difference because of my roots or whatever, right? So this was the company perspective. When you move to the next slide, I will share the employee, the
Before you go there, if I may just interrupt you real quick and go back there. So it's for one comment. Those aspects that you're mentioning as the big trends that are transforming the workplace, I see them so connected with the now called environment social governance metrics that more and more companies are adopting now. And we've been seeing this and hearing it from different places that the social aspect has increased in importance tremendously with the pandemic. And I see here flexibility of work, anti-harassment policies, and salary transparency as being policies, corporate policies. They were always in the agenda, but they were not so enforced. And now you're showing this slide here, and it just, hitting me right in the face that, okay, we knew the recipe, but now it's really the moment to implement those things, right?
Right. And one thing that we were already noticing on the market, it was that, again, when you have this on the speech, but it was just something that you put on the wall as a
mission.
Yeah, it's a nice mission, but you don't really live it in the daily business. It doesn't point you to what we call the employer branding. So you may say, they say invest a lot on trying to promote it, but at the end of the day, it's something that is felt and promoted by employees, the ones that are there living it. So it's really essential to have this coherence between what you say and what you do, and then promote it, right?
Right. So it's not a picture in the world.
Before.
Right. And it's perfect because it's not a picture on the wall. It has to be integrated in the strategy. And the future, the evolution of all this is when every employee will be measured by all the different aspects of the impact that he generates or the company generates. So all of this, as I said, environment, social governance metrics reflecting in the payroll, reflecting in the compensation that the employees really receive. I'm so happy I saw this coming. But I stopped you from also comparing Brazil with the rest of the world. So we should go on to the next slide, right?
Yeah, and this is the opposite perspective. So the previous one was the company, what they were working on, what it was in their agenda, and this is what are in the professional, in the individual agendas, right? So especially on the hot positions where we have a low demand or low offer for the demand in the market, this graph shows exactly what they are looking for and how they choose to work to this company, right? So and one thing, explaining a little bit the graphic, the green ball is the Brazilian results, and we have the gray one when we compare to the global results. And one thing that really called our attention in here is not only what is in the left that are the more important things, but when you go more or less to the middle and you see that investing in a comprehensive and ongoing training, that is the word that is missing, is really important for the Brazilians professionals. Meaning that having a strategy of development, continuous development, is something that the population, we are aware that we have gaps, but we are extremely open to fulfill these gaps, to improve. Right?
That's important because it's also related to the Maslow pyramid of needs. So actualization, and you also have there in the second dot, if I'm not mistaken, is wellness. So this has to do with feeling good, feeling well, healthy, and also keep evolving, keep learning new things, keep motivated in that way as well, right?
Right. And when you start slicing this information and you go up on the hierarchy of the companies, from the manager to the leaders, they are interested on revisiting their own soft skill is extremely high. So they understand that they need to change the way they approach the situation, and they are looking for training, development opportunities to really revisit these topics and start great. And again, coming back to what you mentioned about the sustainability, the environment, or the inclusion, diversity and inclusion, is something that I think that greatly we already passed the step where it was being discussed if it was necessary or not. Most of the leaders in Brazil already understood it, and now they want to be better on this topic specifically, right? So showing this evolution, and especially we have another, we start not really measuring because it was a short period of time, but when we think about the moment that we are having to deal with, again, it's much more the soft skills that are supporting the work environment and keeping people focused on what they have to do.
Right, and I also see there in the middle of the chart the company with purposeful mission being something that we care, the employees, the people care about, right? Can you elaborate a little bit about that?
Yeah, and it again is very specific to Brazil. This case is there is a correlation with recent facts where big companies, at the end of the day, there were a kind of execution that it was not really what they use it to say that they were doing. They were not really, the reality was not really reflecting what they were should be doing. And again, the professionals start looking for, I prefer to have a lower salary, but work on a very transparent company where I feel that our mission is really important and I can identify myself with it. So it's really interesting because in the beginning I mentioned this a strategy that we call employer branding. We are in the baby steps but in employer branding perspective in Brazil. When you look at it zooming out, okay, we do have some best case or benchmarks, but when you look to overall, it's something pretty new for Brazil. But unconsciously, it's not new or is already a decision point for talents to look for a company to work for. So it's really crucial that we align it. And when we talk about employer branding, we are talking about purpose. We are talking about which is the message that the leadership is sharing, how they really manage it. And more than this is the organic positioning of the employees in social medias as LinkedIn, as Twitter and others, sharing how it's the real life, the daily work that they face when they go to the company.
Yeah, we call it in the ESG world the headline test. So the company may say whatever they do, but the employees, the customers, they're all sharing messages about the company via social media. So this can really hit the headline if it's not done right, right?
Yeah. And very quickly, it's amazing. And sometimes when we work with companies that want to, we find a lot of real gems inside the companies, and it's just a matter of communicating it. And I can tell you that half of the time, these examples, they are not on the top of the leaders. They are more or less in the middle. And it's just a matter of, you know, when there's this leadership, this natural leadership that pop up because it is the way the guy used to play. And when we start sharing the story, the impact is sometimes is 2 times, 3 times more when you develop a good story with all your communication team approved by the agency, wherever, and then you put it there. It's interesting to see.
Right. And communication is so important in times of crisis and the pandemic, and for leadership always, but in times of crisis more than ever. And I think your next slide shows a little bit of that as well. So could you comment on that, please? Isa, can you use the slide?
I brought this information because so is on the next one.
Yeah, it's this one. Yeah.
Yeah. So let me explain this slide first, right? What the list that we have in the left side of the slide is a result of a deep study that we did at LinkedIn Brazil, or with the community in Brazil pre-COVID, right? And the question was, okay, when which are the most important interpersonal skills that you see that is you're looking for or is the future of the workforce? And these 5 were the ones that in the Brazilian market they were looking. It doesn't change a lot when more or less what the skills are the same when you compare it to the global results. It changes a little the order, right? So creativity, that is one of starts to be seen as one of the marks of the Brazilian professionals, start to be the first one, and so on. But as you can see, very, very important aspect that one person or a manager specifically, because in here we focus on the leadership, should carry on. And we were developing a lot of content and following all the discussions around this 5 interpersonal skills in the network. And then we were hit by this new war that started in Brazil more or less in March, right? The new situation. And then we start seeing the people revisiting these skills, because more than ever, what was really, really crucial in this moment was, are my leaders being able to be or to feel what the employees, what others are feeling, what customers are feeling? Are, do they know how to do it? Are they able to really move to the other side and start evaluating things by their perspective? So empathy came first, and it was measured in many different ways, right? When they start to be much more flexible for what was being proposed, when they accept the fact that they didn't have an answer, because the managers were heavily pressured to have all answers in the first day of the change, how they were able to manage with all this, but more than anything else, this ability to understand what the other were facing and build up a solution from their perspective. The other key message that, or key skill, was communication. So, and here was interesting, because when the communication, when we start thinking or measuring communications, or the meaning of this communication is leaders that were not too specialized tends to be tends to be better communicators. So again, an old question mark that we had was, what is better, to have the supply manager, supply chain director, a guy that spent his whole life and this cycle of things related to supply chain, or bringing someone from finance to put it there and challenge the status quo? And what we are seeing is that the ones, or the companies that used to have a higher percentage of this cross functions development trainings or opportunities are performing much better on communication. So they were really able to really elaborate what was the problem, what should be the solution, and how to engage the team around the new positioning, right?
So it's not only a matter of communication becoming more relevant and importance, but the form of communication being more cross-sectorial and including more also changed. Interesting.
It's much more the form than the content itself. Yeah, you're right. And the third one was confidence, for sure, that with so many uncertainties around the world that you face every day, managers, leaders had to be the strong pillar where most of the employees looked for to get directions. And it was interesting, and again, coming back to communication, what it was so is that the leader that was able to really split the situation in small phases, giving small tasks and keeping the movement much more than giving complete answers, are performing better, are keeping the team much more connected to what they should be doing in this moment. Because again, nobody knows what is going to happen, really, right?
This is beautiful. In systems thinking, we really think that way too. I mean, allowing room for the new to emerge. You don't know everything, so acknowledge that you don't know, and welcome different perspectives to make your decisions more effective, right?
Right. And again, it's all about communicating it. It's all about reshaping it all the time, right? Mm-hmm. For sure, adaptability, no questions. It was amazing how one thing that was defined in the beginning of the week had to be revisited in the middle, and is completely different at the end of the week. So we are still facing these situations, not only because of the pandemic, but all the other impacts and again, external pressures that are coming to the team and to the business. and resilience. And resilience is a mark of the Brazilian professionals overall. In this topic, more in the middle of the pyramid instead of the top, but for sure that it goes up. But all these conclusions, or all these 5 are still, they are not really based on LinkedIn data. Is much more based on what is being discussed, what is being reevaluated in webinars, customers meetings, and our own internal results, or our own internal reality that we are facing, right? But more than ever, the managers and leaders has a tremendous role to play in this moment, right? So I honestly and personally, when I am not that good, I prefer to be out of the screen, shut down all the Zooms and Blue Jeans and video conferences and stuff, because the moment is very delicate, and we do have to appear and be this strong leader that the team is demanding on and is looking for.
And to be this strong leader, you have to take care of yourself first, like you do in the airplane. You put your oxygen mask first. You have to kind of withdraw from the scene to get your strength back. And resilience also reminds me of sustainability, because this is a new word that's being used a lot. And today is the World Environmental Day, so it's a beautiful day for us to be talking about this. And it's also very relevant to be talking about resilience and World Environmental Day when we're talking about the impacts of COVID, which is a pandemic that is generated to some extent to the bad use we've made with the biodiversity in the planet, right? The cause of this it's kind of infectious diseases. 75% is due to this messing around with the biodiversity that we have done for so long, right? So it is not only touching us in terms of our personal health, but our organizational health, but our planetary health. Yes. And this is so interconnected and so needed. So I'm glad to see that.
Yeah, and come back to employer branding. All this discussion is becoming really strong in Brazil, right? People are choosing companies to work for dependent on their real position around it. So the conscious about it, that we have to protect the planet is not really only a pitch. It's something that people are putting on the table to take a decision where to work for.
Right. And this also questions the aspect of growth. So growth regardless of everything, or growth in a regenerative way, which is another word that after resilience is getting a lot of importance. Let me pause just a second here, because I would go forever talking to you directly, but I want to make sure we cover some of the questions. We have a question here from Viviane Ludovici that says, some companies are seeing productivity rate grow in this new environment, working from home. Is this sustainable, or it could be just a reaction from the employees of fear of losing their jobs?
Yeah, unfortunately, what we measure, and this is already a study that we have, is because of the second option. So we have an important average or percentage of people working more hours because of the fear of losing their jobs, especially in Brazil, right? So more than 60% of the employees are answering emails out of hours, connecting earlier, disconnecting later, and in behind is this wish to show to the boss that they are working hard, right?
Or that they're relevant, that they matter, right?
Yeah. As they are out of, they are not in the office anymore. Is the way that they found to really show they are working. So 62%, and this and now it's based on a research that was done by LinkedIn in Brazil. 62% of the workforce is feeling much more anxious and stressed. in
Wow.
nowadays. 35% with problems to concentrate, and 33% with heavily impact on sleep. They are not being able to sleep.
Wow.
Yeah. So unfortunately, they are becoming more productive, but there is a bill that is going to be paid on it.
There's another
Coming
question
back,
that's related to it too. So, sorry, go ahead, and then I'll ask
no,
that.
so and coming back to the role of the manager and the leader, and this was one kind of conversation that I had with my team personally at LinkedIn. I said, you guys, why, you know, why, from where it comes from? Because I started receiving emails 6:30 in the morning, and I was not used to, right? So it may be because it's better for me to work at 6:30 because my son is sleeping.
Right. You
And
have to be
that's fine,
flexible.
right?
Yeah.
Or what is in behind? So having this conversation is so important nowadays,
Exactly.
and setting the boundaries.
So it allows you for you to be more flexible, but also you have to be mindful of your limits and how you keep your balance and keep your wellness going. There's another question here from Jasmine that says, Anna, I've seen many companies reducing the work journey hours of employees, reducing salaries in the same proportion in others in order to maintain employment. But in reality, I've also heard that the workload hasn't reduced. Have you seen that among the customers? How have employees reacted? What do you think?
Yeah, yeah. I think that we are with how I'm gonna be measured. My performance is gonna be measured. Is there this kind of discussion? Which is the workload that I'm keeping or reducing? If it's under construction. So what I can tell you is that there is a notion that by one side we reduced the work hours, but we didn't reduce the workload, and these things have to be again find a
Accommodated.
balance. Yeah,
Yeah.
it was not intention. It was much more based on this lack of experience on how to deal with the situation. But again, companies are revisiting it as they are revisiting the fact, and how it's going to be the future footprint of the company, right? So after passing this moment, we are starting having the conversation. Okay, coming back to the office, how is going to be the configuration of this office? I do need all this space? Do I need to have everybody on the office all the time? You know, but these are exactly the moment where we are, where we do not have answers already, but the discussions are
Yeah.
running.
We don't have the answers. We're still evolving into this unknown. I mean, there's still things that we don't know that are going to happen, but we'll eventually start hiring again. And more than ever, we know how important the values are. That brings me to the next question from Marcella. She was talking about, how do you assess the soft skills and values during the hiring process? Because we're talking about the soft skills, but can you share a little bit how you do it?
What we see is that there are some methodologies already, but more than ever, it comes from the screening. Is the better results are the ones that change the screening phase, where we start visiting not only what is in the LinkedIn profile and the resume, but other ingredients that used to be out of the plate. Volunteers experiences, childhood, other examples, other conversations, for sure, respecting the limits that varies from country to country until what I can ask in an interview, but trying to explore what really talks from touch the heart of the person, right? So it's much, the conversation is different, and it's starting the screening phase.
Yeah. So, and also, you know, when we talk about values and transparency, this is going to definitely impact the way we see things moving forward in many ways. I have a final question here for you from my end, and let's see if anybody else wants to have another question. But I would like to see, you know, in BRIA, and in BRIA, what we do is we are a startup. we're trying to also inspire leaders to promote change, to have better organizations and a better world at the end of the day. And we believe that if we pursue the good for people and planet while we're pursuing profits, this is how we're going to impact the world for better and create what we call the impact economy. So in order to build this impact economy, which is this economy that seeks financial return alongside positive social and environmental impact, we normally say that people and organizations must align with a higher purpose. So what is this higher purpose for you? So what motivates you to get up in the morning and go to work? And what advice do you give our audience about aligning with purpose?
Right. Well, personally, as you mentioned in the beginning, all my background, it was technical background, computer science. I worked for amazing companies, all of them technology companies. Innovations were what is my day, right? It's all about innovation and how to create a demand that the customer don't even know that he will need it, right? It was at LinkedIn where I understood the real value of connecting personal purpose with company purpose or mission, right? So when you go back to LinkedIn mission, I wake up in the morning to work, to connect better economic opportunity to every individual of the workforce in the world. This is what, when you measure the impact of it, I'm not talking about this workforce in the world, but I'm talking about how I was able to really present the right opportunity to Adriana in a company X and transform their lives. And it happens, right? So it's amazing when after engaging in an employer branding project or working with the professional to improve their LinkedIn profile, that is one of our give back roles that we have at LinkedIn. And after it, this guy change jobs or find a job. In the case of Brazil, that happens a lot. The return that we have is amazing. You know, I was able not only to try to impact the world, but I changed the life of one person that I knew, an individual that now is building something different and is happier than he was. So this is for me proposal. This is why LinkedIn is so special for me, because it's the usage of the technology to really transform the individual life.
That's so nice. Speaking of the individual, let's take the temperature of our audience here. We have a quick polling that we'd like to share with you. So Isa, if you can please share, everybody, if you can please vote. So how are you feeling with the global pandemic crisis? Optimistic, grateful, cooperative, patient, resilient, frustrated, or fearful? So please vote, and we'll see the results in 1 second. Yes, let's see the results. All right, we have a lot of resilient. Woohoo,
Yeah.
good. And many grateful and optimistic. This is also so important, to be grateful for whatever you have, because you're always having a learning opportunity here. This is great. And optimistic, lots of optimistic, some cooperative, and of course some fearful too. And we have to understand that that is a moment that, you know, it makes people fearful, and we have to acknowledge that and include that too. Yeah. Now let's have a second question here about the same feelings, but in a different way. So let's see the second question here for the poll, please. So how do you think you should feel in order to drive positive change? So what is the characteristic you should have? Optimistic, grateful, cooperative, patient, resilient, resistant, frustrated, or fearful? So please vote. And voila, the result is Aha, more cooperative growing here, and optimistic continues to lead. That's nice. Lots of grateful and resilient too. Very nice, very nice. And third and last question, let's see here. What is the next question, please? So in order to turn this crisis into opportunity and positive change, what is the good practice you believe is most important to apply? So we have some options here for you. Prioritization, discipline to drive focus, courage to take risk, collaboration through networks, relaxation and mindfulness, and aligning with a higher purpose. So please vote. And the answers are, let's see, I'm excited. All right, collaboration through networks. That's perfect for LinkedIn. Discipline to drive focus. Anna, please feel free to comment on the results as well.
You know, what I liked the most was the fact that frustration didn't appear in none of the questions, as an answer for none of the question, because if there is one feeling that doesn't build anything, is frustration, right? So again, sometimes acknowledging that it exists, that's fine. But again, it made me really happy to see it. And collaboration is something that more than ever, and I think that it was really accelerated by the momentum, is the future of companies, right? So I do not need to really do it by myself and be the only one doing it the best, but really collaborating, creating this ecosystem that, by the way, is one of the key pillars that we are revisiting at LinkedIn also. It's not only about the economic graphics we used to call the number of members, companies, skills, and competencies that we have on the network, but more than this, which is this ecosystem and behind it being impacted, and it's based on collaboration.
Wonderful. And to close our conversation here, I also wanted to share something that Bria does in terms of collaboration and helping leaders embrace their leadership journey. So Isa, if you can please share the screen here. We have something at Bria that is a program that we created for leadership development called the CEO Meet and Master. So I invited a lot of great diverse speakers, and some of them are here with us today in the webinar from different parts of the world to share their view, their impressions and their good practices from the C-suite with us, and then to understand with a little bit of introduction to systemic thinking, how we can actually promote this change and drive results to all stakeholders. So this is an online course that's available in the BRIA Institute, and everybody who registered for this website will get 60% discount if they are willing to take it. So it's going to be a pleasure. And I'm sorry to say that it's already time to leave, but it's so good to have you, Anna. It is amazing, the conversation, the data you're collecting, the work you're doing. I'm fascinated by your motivation. Keep doing this great work, and come back to BRIA Institute to share more with us in the future. Thank you so much for coming here, and I'll leave you with the closing words from your side.
No, thank you for the space. And again, it was just sharing what we are dealing with every day. I don't have the present to be correct. I'm just sharing what I'm facing and what I know. And I do believe that with this is that we create a different world for everybody, right? So thank you, Adriana.
And people are the greatest asset of any organization. And it's through, understanding people's needs, changing people, helping them grow, helping them embrace their leadership journey, as I said, is the only way that we're going to have better organizations and a better world. So it all starts with people. It's all about people, as a former boss of mine used to say, and I love it. So again, Anna, thank you very much for sharing all your beautiful insights with us. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. This is amazing to have all your presences. Sorry I didn't cover all the questions, but if you send me the questions through our web pages and LinkedIn and so on, we will make sure Anna and I respond to all your questions. So again, stay tuned. We'll have more coming. And thank you again, Anna, for the beautiful conversation. I really loved it. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.